All right, welcome back to Counterpoints. Glad to be back in the studio. We were not here last week because of the Republican debate.
That's right.
Which I hear was a lot of fun.
It was a blast. You didn't watch in France?
I did not watch that.
Ryan has been doing a home swap in France, and I think he had a really relaxing and fun time with his family.
I think it was like 4 a.m., and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to watch this undercard.
Nah.
I'll catch the Trump Tucker Carlson clips later.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to sleep through this.
Well, it's good to have you back in studio.
Good to be here.
All right, well, we're tracking the hurricane that actually became a Category 4 storm off the coast of Florida overnight. Wednesday, early this morning, briefly intensified, as CNN says, into an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane with winds of 130 miles per hour before it weakened slightly. We have some video coming in from Florida just as we're taping this right now. Take a look.
Incredible storm surge here this morning at about 7 o'clock. Sitting there, look at one of the marine markers coming through. That's a marine marker right there. So that's big water, big wave action. It's approaching the houses here on First Street. And then look at this. Literally right off the incredible.
Lost power live on air. Now the National Hurricane Center is predicting there could be a surge of up to 16 feet, which would be around once in a lifetime levels, again, according to CNN.
Yeah, and this is hitting kind of the hinge. What do you call that area in Florida where the panhandle meets the rest of it?
The hinge.
Something like the hinge.
Let's go with that.
And it's smashing right through there. It's going to come up the eastern seaboard. We have Ron DeSantis here if we want to play his response, governor of Florida.
So we are going to have the full landfall impacts very, very shortly, within the next couple hours, most likely, probably by 0800. It's going to make landfall on Florida's Big Bend. So please hunker down wherever you are. Don't mess with this storm. Don't do anything that's going to put yourself in jeopardy. And there'll be a lot of help coming on the back end of this storm, and we're ready to go. As soon as it's safe to do so, you're going to see all these different assets deployed.
I knew there was something, the Big Bend.
The Big Bend region.
So it's the Big Bend. And there was some reporting last night that a lot of sheriffs and others from the rural counties in the Big Bend urging people to get out. A lot of people did not get out because even though this is a once-in-a-lifetime storm, Florida's seen plenty of storms before.
Right.
And so people think, you know, we're going to hunker down, as DeSantis said, and we're going to make it through this. And the sheriff was saying that there were way too many spots open in the shelters. That, you know, in an elementary school that can handle 700, they might have 100. And so there's a lot of fear that a lot of people stayed not understanding just how bad it could be. Because if you are judging, you know, present and future climate events by the past, you might miss out on some, you know, extreme ones that are going to hit you.
And, you know, it's also expensive to leave. It's inconvenient to leave if you have a shift that you need to get to.
And who wants to go to an elementary school and spend the night? Like, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Why would you leave the comfort of your home? Why would you want to if you don't have to? And if you feel like you don't have to, because these warnings sometimes, you know, are moved down, they're bumped down, they start really severe, and things change as the day goes on. And so people take their chances, but hope everybody who did that this time is staying safe.
Yeah. And there was a storm chaser on Fox News who was telling people, like, no, seriously.
Get out.
Get out. So do we have that Fox News clip here we can roll?
That center is going to approach this area within the next hour to hour and a half, and we're going to see those winds switch around, and we're going to have to watch for a major water push that's going to come inland. Luckily, we have not seen much in the way of people out here in this area, which is a great thing. We were here yesterday afternoon talking to residents, talking to the Taylor County deputies. There was a curfew in effect. There's pretty much a mandatory evacuation in effect. So this is a very rare scenario with a system coming out of the eastern Gulf of Mexico that has made major hurricane status, because that just does not happen in this region.
Yeah, and later in the show, we're going to talk about several climate protests, kind of one that was out at Burning Man, another in Washington, D.C. All of them went terribly. Furious reactions from the public. And I think part of it comes from, and we can talk about this more later, nobody needs awareness raised anymore about climate. Like if you, there's basically nobody left in the country who doesn't think the climate is changing in dangerous ways, and also that it's happening because of man-made carbon emissions. Like almost nobody left. Now the big fight is over what to do about it. Even Vivek in that debate, when he said the climate agenda is a hoax, like he's being very smarmy and clever there, and like because some people are going to hear that as climate stuff is a hoax, but what he's saying is the agenda is a hoax. So he's saying, like, okay, I agree, the climate is changing. What I don't agree with is how the left wants to use it to kind of re-engineer society. But about 10 years ago or so, I remember thinking, all right, it's clear that we're not going to do enough about climate change in my lifetime, and that we're going to see utterly catastrophic results as in the end. It's like, at least I'll be around for that comforting feeling of I told you so. Nothing better in the world than being able to say I told you so to people who fought against the opportunity when it was around to do something about it. Watching it happen now, I don't get an ounce of satisfaction. Like I'm even deprived of the satisfaction of being able to say I told you so. Like seeing what happened in Vermont, seeing what's happening in Canada, seeing what's happening down in Florida right now, none of that even brings me an ounce of like I told you so joy.
I would be worried if it did.
Yeah,
I would be worried if it did.
Yeah, and I think it's abstract. 10 years ago, it's abstract. What's this climate apocalypse going to look like? But when you see some of those images, where the inland areas have just been turned into ocean, and what's that going to leave behind? I was driving through the Panhandle a year or two ago, and you could still see all the devastation. I forget which hurricane it was, but it was not a couple weeks prior. It was like years prior, and you could still see debris. And you could still see destruction. I talked to somebody from Montpelier last night. They've barely recovered from that flood up in Vermont. And so as these once-in-a-lifetime events continue to accumulate and we become increasingly unable to recover from them, like what kind of world does that leave behind us?
And I think you and I have disagreements on this, but and we can flesh some of those out in the climate block. But it's another big question for media, because one thing I wanted to mention here actually is that there's still hundreds of people unaccounted for in Maui. And the media coverage of that has slowed to a trickle at best. And again, we're looking at years of rebuilding. In Maui, we're looking at a devastated local economy, and we're looking at potentially somewhere around 1,000, if not more, deaths. We have 115 confirmed deaths as of right now, which is a staggering number. Right now, already, that's a staggering number. It could climb by some tenfold by the time all of the dust, so to speak, settles.
Yeah, and as I was writing in this morning, I was thinking of one. I was going over all the 20 years of like climate arguments that we've been having over the years. And one of them that you used to hear a lot was this one. Do you remember? Maybe you still hear it. Like, hey, in the 16th century, we had a little ice age. Things get colder, things get hotter. That's all there is to it. What are you going to do about it? It happens. What I've learned since then is that, have you heard the theory on why we had that little ice age in the 16th century?
I don't know.
So in the 1400s, 1500s, Columbus and the Europeans come over to the New World, and they bring disease with them. You have a 90% population die-off as a result of that disease coming in. Humanity is always at war with nature, or humanity is always at war with vegetation, at least. And so with 90% of people gone, vegetation just took over North America, which is why you have all these descriptions of this kind of untouched wilderness 100 years later that people came to. It wasn't that way 200 years ago. It became that way over the course of like 50 years from all of this just kind of wilderness taking back over where humans had been. And what does vegetation do? Sucks carbon out of the air. So even the silly kind of pedantic point that people made about the little ice age actually turned out to be also anthropogenic in the beginning. Or you could blame a virus, or you could blame disease if you want, but it was humans that carried the disease over there. And so it just shows that, as Elon Musk said on Twitter just the other day, that the carbon, not Twitter, refuse, I absolutely refuse, that carbon concentration in the atmosphere matters. Like it's like it doesn't care about your feelings or your politics. Like
carbon doesn't care about your feelings.
Yeah, it doesn't. You take carbon out, it gets colder. You put more carbon in, it gets warmer. Like this is basic stuff. And there's just no way around it.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.